What if I told you a single question from a stranger could change a billionaire's son's entire world? Picture this. You have everything money can buy, a mansion bigger than most hotels, private tutors, ponies in your backyard, and parents who will move mountains for you. But despite all of this, you eat dinner alone, celebrate birthdays with kids who barely look at you, and go to sleep each night wondering if anyone would miss you if you disappeared. Have you ever been the kid nobody wanted to play with? Or watch your child struggle to make friends despite having everything they could possibly want? Have you ever felt invisible despite being surrounded by people? This is the story of Elliot Harrington, heir to a real estate empire worth billions, who lived in the most beautiful prison in Atlanta. For 12 years, his world was filled with everything except the one thing his heart craved most. Until a little girl with paint-stained fingers and a grandmother's wisdom asked him 5 simple words that shattered his isolation forever. What she said wasn't magical or profound. It was so ordinary that most people wouldn't remember it 5 minutes later. But for Elliot, those words became the bridge between his lonely world and a friendship that would teach his entire family what wealth really means. If you ever felt invisible despite being surrounded by people, hit that like button right now. The Harrington estate stretched across 47 acres of prime Atlanta real estate. Crystal chandeliers hung in every room. Marble floors reflected sunlight through floor-to-ceiling windows, and the gardens looked like something from a fairy tale. But for Elliot Harrington, it felt more like a beautiful cage. Born with spina bifida, Elliot had used a wheelchair his entire life. But that's not what defined him. His sharp wit did, his incredible talent for chess did, his paintings that covered the walls of his bedroom did. Unfortunately, the world rarely saw past the wheels. Preston Harrington, Elliot's father, meant well. He hired the best tutors money could find, arranged elaborate birthday parties with professional entertainers, and made sure his son had every educational toy and art supply imaginable. But what Preston couldn't buy was what Elliot needed most, a friend who saw him as just another kid. The birthday parties were the worst. Children from Atlanta's most prestigious private schools would arrive in expensive clothes, their parents dropping them off with forced smiles and whispered instructions to be nice to the Harrington boy. The kids would enjoy the pony rides, the magicians, the gift bags worth more than most families' weekly groceries. But they'd play around Elliot, not with him. Maybe we could play chess? Elliot would suggest, hopefully. I don't really know how. They'd mumble, eyes already searching for the next entertaining distraction. By age 12, Elliot had stopped asking. He'd learned to smile during his own parties and retreat to his room afterward, where he'd paint landscapes of places he'd never been and dream of adventures he'd never have. Comment below if you think money makes childhood easier or harder, because Elliot's story proves that some of life's most important gifts can't be purchased. Just beyond the towering gates of the Harrington estate lay a different world entirely. Modest homes with small gardens, children riding bicycles on sidewalks, and the sound of laughter echoing from neighborhood parks. In one of these homes lived 8-year-old Amara with her grandmother, Nana Rose. Their house could have fit in the Harrington's garage, but overflowed with something the mansion lacked, warmth that came from being truly seen and loved. Amara was the kind of child who noticed everything. The way sunlight made patterns through leaves, how her grandmother's hands told stories through their gestures, and why the sad-looking boy in the wheelchair always sat alone during his therapy sessions at the park. Nana, why doesn't anyone play with that boy? Amara asked one afternoon, watching through their kitchen window as Elliot waited outside the physical therapy center. Nana Rose looked where her granddaughter pointed. She'd seen the Harrington boy before, always surrounded by adults, never by children his own age. Sometimes, baby girl, people forget to see the person inside, Nana Rose said gently. They look at what makes someone different instead of what makes them special. But what makes him special? Amara wondered aloud. Why don't you ask him? That simple suggestion would change 2 lives forever, because Amara was about to do something revolutionary in Elliot's world. She was about to see him as just another kid who might want a friend. The stage was set for a meeting that would prove the most valuable things in life aren't for sale. Tuesday afternoon, October 15th. Elliot sat in his usual spot outside the therapy center, a sketchpad balance on his lap, as he drew the autumn leaves falling around the park benches. His driver waited nearby, scrolling through his phone, while other kids played on swings that seemed a world away. This was Elliot's routine: therapy, waiting, drawing, going home to an empty afternoon. He'd grown accustomed to being background scenery in other people's lives. But today, something different happened. A shadow fell across his drawing. Elliot looked up to see a girl about his age with curly hair escaping from two ponytails, dirt under her fingernails, and the biggest, most genuine smile he'd ever seen. She was holding a small sketchpad of her own, filled with drawings that looked like they'd been created with pure joy rather than expensive art lessons. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Elliot braced himself for the usual reaction: the quick glance at his wheelchair, the awkward smile, the sudden remembering of somewhere else they needed to be. Instead, the girl tilted her head and asked the 5 words that would change his world. "Can I draw with you?" Elliot blinked. No one had ever asked to draw with him. His art teachers gave him assignments. His parents praised his finished pieces. But no one had ever wanted to simply sit beside him and create something together. "You want to draw with me?" Elliot stammered. "Yeah, I saw your picture of the leaves. It's really good. I was trying to draw them too, but mine look like green blobs." Amara plopped down cross-legged on the ground beside his wheelchair without hesitation. "I'm Amara. What's your name?" "Elliot," he managed, still stunned that this conversation was actually happening. "Cool name. What are you drawing now?" And just like that, the walls around Elliot's world began to crumble. Not because of some grand gesture or elaborate plan, but because a little girl named Amara had done something radical. She had seen a boy with a sketchpad instead of a boy in a wheelchair. Have you ever had someone see the real you when everyone else looked past you? Share your story below, because what happened next would teach both children what true friendship looks like. What started with shared sketches became something neither child had experienced before: a friendship built on genuine connection rather than obligation or pity. Amara began visiting the estate regularly, much to Preston's initial concern. He worried about liability, about appearances, about what the other wealthy families might think. But watching his son's face light up when Amara arrived made all his concerns seem trivial. "Race you to the fountain," Amara would shout, taking off across the manicured lawns while Elliot spun his wheels as fast as he could, both of them laughing so hard they could barely breathe. She taught him clapping games he'd never learned, her small hands guiding us through intricate patterns, while she sang silly songs that made him giggle until his sides hurt. Miss Mary Mac, 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 all dressed in black, black, black. They'd chant together, their voices echoing through halls that had been silent for too long. Amara never treated Elliot's wheelchair as an obstacle to overcome. It was simply part of how her friend moved through the world. When they painted murals on the garden shed with Preston's reluctant permission, she'd sit on the ground so they could work at the same level. When they explored the estate's grounds, she'd walk beside him, matching his pace naturally. "What's your favorite color?" she asked one afternoon as they painted side by side. "Blue, like the sky in my dreams," Elliot said without thinking. "That's a good blue." Amara nodded seriously. "Mine changes every day. Today it's yellow because it makes me think of laughing." These weren't conversations about his disability or his family's wealth. They were the ordinary, extraordinary talks that happen between friends, about favorite foods and dream vacations, about whether aliens exist and why grown-ups worry so much. Amara brought her grandmother's cookies to share, and Elliot introduced her to chess, patiently teaching her each piece's moves while she told him stories about the neighborhood kids and their adventures. "You should come over sometime," Amara suggested one day. "Nana Rose makes the best hot chocolate, and she'd love to meet you." The idea terrified and thrilled Elliot. Leave the estate? Visit someone else's home? It was something he dreamed of but never thought possible. Would she be okay with? He gestured toward his wheelchair. Amara looked genuinely confused. "With what?" "Oh, that. Nana Rose says wheels are just another way of getting around. Her friend Mr. Johnson uses them too, and he beats everyone at dominoes." For Elliot, these moments felt like discovering color after living in black and white. This was what friendship looked like: easy, natural, and completely unconditional. Preston Harrington watched this unlikely friendship with growing amazement and, he had to admit, some discomfort. He'd spent 12 years trying to shield his son from a world that might not accept him, only to watch a little girl from beyond their gates offer exactly what Elliot needed most. At first, Preston hovered during Amara's visits, ready to intervene if things went wrong. But gradually, he began to see what his overprotection had cost his son. The turning point came on a warm spring afternoon. Preston stood at his office window, reviewing contracts, when laughter from the garden caught his attention. Below, he saw Amara weaving dandelions and daisies into a crown, while Elliot waited patiently in his wheelchair. "By the power vested in me by the Kingdom of Gardens," Amara announced in her most royal voice, "I hereby crown you King Elliot I, ruler of all things fun and friend to all creatures great and small." She placed a flower crown on Elliot's head with ceremony worthy of actual royalty. Elliot sat straighter, beaming with a joy Preston hadn't seen since. "Well, maybe ever. What are my royal duties, Your Majesty?" Elliot asked, playing along perfectly. "Making sure everyone in your kingdom feels special and never, ever letting anyone tell them they can't do something just because they're different," Amara declared. Preston's throat tightened. In that moment, he didn't see his disabled son being pitied or humored. He saw a boy, just a boy, being celebrated by someone who loved him exactly as he was. That evening, Preston made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. "Elliot," he said over dinner, "would you like to invite Amara and her grandmother for Sunday brunch this weekend? I think it's time our families officially met. Subscribe if you believe the best gifts in life can't be bought, because the Harringtons were about to learn the true meaning of wealth." Sunday brunch became a weekly tradition. Nana, Rose, and Preston discovered they both loved gardening, while Amara and Elliot planned adventures that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with imagination. The Harrington mansion filled with a sound that had always been missing, the laughter of a child who was truly happy. Preston learned that his wealth's greatest power wasn't in what it could buy, but in how it could welcome someone who saw his son's heart before anything else. What would you do if a stranger showed your child what friendship really means? Have you ever discovered that the most valuable things can't be purchased? Drop your thoughts below. Like this video if you believe everyone deserves someone who sees their true worth. Subscribe for more stories proving that genuine connection is life's greatest treasure. Thanks for watching, and remember, the best friendships begin when someone asks, "Can I join you